family that you're born into, I always talk about the water you swim in. It's very difficult to communicate to people about things that are so common to them that they don't notice them. That fish do not notice the water they swim in. How could they? It's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. It's completely normal. The water that you swim in when you're a child is a fishbowl. You don't know it. Your family is a fishbowl, and you think it's representative of everything. You think when you're growing up that the way that you do things at your house is the way that everybody does things at every house. It's an enlightening experience for a young child to visit his friends, to visit their families, to visit his cousins or his grandparents, or just to visit around and see that people do things differently. Because children never suspect that. Not originally. They can't. Why would they? Why would there be any alternative to this? This is all there ever was. Why would there be any alternative to this? So the water you swim in, while it seems to be everything that ever could possibly be, nevertheless it really is just a fishbowl. And every fishbowl is different. Every family is different. Every household is different. Maybe only subtly different. Maybe there's a whole lot of commonality. If you're, you know, a Norwegian living in suburban St. Paul, all of your neighbors may be an awful lot like you, and their families may be an awful lot like yours, and there may not be any huge differences you can note. There will be a lot of subtle differences. But if you are an expat American living in Tunis, Tunisia, I have a friend in Tunis, Tunisia. I can't imagine what it would be like to be an expat in Tunis, but everything is going to be different. You will have left the fishbowl of your family, of your community, of your country, of your expectations, and transfer to a completely different fishbowl, and then you will notice all of the differences. Every fishbowl is different. Almost none of them are wrong. Every family has a different way of doing things, and some will be more coercive, some less coercive, some more honest, some less honest, some more transparent, some more opaque. Unless there is, you know, serious ongoing physical or sexual abuse, emotional abuse in that family, the kids are going to turn out okay anyway. They might not be perfect, and they might not be launched into the best orbit they might have achieved, but they will make it into orbit. They'll make it on their own. They'll be able to move out. They'll be able to get jobs. They'll be able to drive a car. They'll be able to go to the supermarket and buy appropriate food and come home and prepare it. They'll be able to manage their finances. They'll be able to save money, one may hope. This may be an American virtue completely lost, but a fishbowl has to be pretty toxic for it to be wrong, in the sense that the children will emerge as adults and will manage their adult lives with a reasonable proficiency, and no one will have any good cause to complain about their upbringing. It's a global curse. Certainly it's definitely a curse of the West, kissing and moaning about all the things that your parents could have and should have done, or did and didn't do. And their job is to keep you alive until you're able to keep yourself alive. And if they did that, they did the job. Everything they did on top of that is gravy. If they miss that mark, there's no way we're having this conversation. You are not competent to exist. You're not even in the game. And the fact that almost everybody is in the game tells us that almost every fishbowl is fine. That a fishbowl that is so toxic that it results in an incompetent adult, a genetic Homo sapiens who is an adult by age but is really still an infant in its behavior, is completely incapable of defending its own life, providing for itself, living an autonomous existence. That kind of toxic fishbowl is unbelievably rare. This is the outlier among outliers. This is the weirdest thing in the world, the rarest thing in the world. And therefore it's not hugely beneficial to even consider it, to even think about it, but it's worse to blow minor things out of proportion in order to justify irrational actions. Again, remember, rationality is proportionality. And if your parents made mistakes, dang. If a mosquito bit you, dang. In both cases, get over it. There's nothing that you're going to do that is going to undo what was done in the past, but there's a lot that you can do that will result in genuine tragedy for you and for your family in the future. And I think it's important, utterly, vitally important, to understand that storgic relationships are non-fungible. That friendship is largely fungible. Having a job or joining a club or a community, these are fungible events. That if you have a new friend and it doesn't work out, you lost a couple of weeks, you have a new friend, another new friend. If you take a position on a committee and then realize that you cannot stand sitting through those boring meetings, you submit your resignation and you move on. It doesn't mean anything. But if you have a lifelong friend, a friendship that has really meant the world to you over the years, this cannot be replaced. The friendship can break apart. It can happen. But you cannot get a substitute for that will substitute for what you had before. It cannot happen because the time is gone. You spent this time with that person. The events that you lived through cannot be replicated. They can't be replaced. And the time that transpired over the years while those events were taking place cannot be replaced either. You can make a new friendship. It can be a great friendship. It may be a better friendship than the one you had. But you will not replace the values that you lost when you broke that earlier friendship, because the past cannot be repeated. And I've been paying attention to Stefan Molyneux this week, basically in the context of his being a cult leader. And I don't want to say that he is or isn't. I really don't care. I really don't care. It is clear to me that Molyneux's continued harping on the idea of disassociating yourself with your family is horribly, horribly anegoic, horribly self-destructive. And that puts him into a category that makes it easy for me to deal with him, in the sense that if he's anegoic, if he's anti-egoistic, I don't bother with him. He's of no interest to me whatever. He's of a piece with the rest of philosophy for all of human history. He is also focused on the dump. He's looking for some cause outside of himself for his misery, and he's gonna, in this case, he's blaming it on his family, but it doesn't matter who he blames it on, because there's only one author of your actions. There's only one author of your life. There's only one self you can improve. There's only one splendor you can achieve, your own. And only one squalor you can achieve, your own. And where I really have trouble with this idea of defooing is that it is taking people who are very much interested in maximizing their lives and by a very simple, subtle means convincing them to destroy their lives instead. Whatever it is they think they're getting as an immediate benefit from this defooing, what they're giving up is enormous. And a trade of values where you give up something huge and get nothing in exchange, yeah, that's a fraud. That's a terrible, terrible thing. I object to this idea as an instance, really a vicious instance of anegoism, of anti-egoism. It is hugely disproportionate that if you have a parent who is sexually abusing you or has sexually abused you in the past, this is a relationship that is worth breaking. Verbally abused you in a vicious way, is incapable of engaging with you in a sane, civilized manner. These are all good reasons for breaking with an individual, a particular person. Defooing in the Molyneuxian zeitgeist consists of destroying every relationship you've had until then. Your relationship with your father, your mother, your brothers and sisters, all of your family friends, all of your personal friends for your whole life. It consists of self-isolation, a complete, and in your formulation, in your claim, a permanent disassociation with everyone that you've ever known. This is voluntary solitary confinement. Voluntarily initiated solitary confinement. This is hideously stupid. I mean, really stupid. Solitary confinement drives people crazy. Being alone all the time drives people crazy. We are social animals. We are meant to interact with one another. If we don't, bad things happen. It's not a good thing. It would be a bad thing if it happened accidentally. You were shipwrecked and ended up like, what was it, the movie Stranded, all alone on a desert island for years on end. This will make you nuts. It would be a tragic thing if it were to happen by accident, but for that to happen, for you to do that intentionally, that is twice tragic, and for someone to encourage you to do that, that's evil. That's evil. And I am very distressed. I don't get the impression that it happens with a lot of people. Certainly if you look for incidents reported in the news, they're very few in number. There are websites devoted to the cultishness of Molyneux, and they document a few more cases. But if you go to Freedom Radio's forum, member forum, you find lots and lots and lots of posts from people who are miserable because they've destroyed every relationship they've ever had in their families, and obviously they can't replace them. They can't replace those relationships because the reason that they broke them in the first place is the reason that they'll end up breaking every other relationship they ever form in their lives. But even worse than that, storgic relationships endure. Storgic relationships are not fragile. They're not breakable. And every other kind of relationship is. Every other kind of relationship is inherently temporary, where a storgic relationship asserts by plan and intention at least that it is permanent, that it is not temporary, that it will only be separated by the death of one of the members of that organization, of that polity, of that polis, of that community. So these kids destroy the relationships they have with the people who will love them despite everything in behalf of people who will throw them away, dispense with them entirely at the first sign of a disagreement. That you have yelled and screamed at your parents, you have said the most vicious things to them, you have more than once said, "I hate you!" And they still love you. They still put up with you. They still pay for you. And they still want to know how you're getting on. And they always want to hear from you. They always want to see you. Like your dog. That's the love of a dog. The storgic love that your parents have for you is exactly like the love your dog has for you. You really have to beat a dog to chase it away. And you have beat on your parents something fierce over the years, and you've never managed to chase them away. That if you have grievances with them, you remember them all and treasure them all like your own pet collection of scabs. Your parents have a lot more grievances with you, and they don't remember any one of them. They don't care. That's storgic love. They have it for you, and you don't have it for them. That's why you can even consider throwing them away, is because you don't feel about them the way they feel about you. But the funniest thing about all of this is that it's almost certainly futile. The process of destroying all these relationships is arduous. It's going to take a lot of effort. Destroying one relationship takes a lot of effort. Destroying a dozen is going to take an enormous amount of effort. And in the long run, it's almost certainly futile. You're attempting to whitewash your past, or pretend that your past didn't happen, or that events that happened in your past you're going to pretend didn't happen, you're going to forget about, and you're going to paint over them. You're attempting to pre-paint your future. You're attempting to establish how your future is going to play out by delimiting the number of people who are going to be involved in it, the particular people who are going to be involved in it. But someday you're going to wake up in a hospital. It could happen. You're going to wake up in a hospital, and beside your bed is going to be your mom and your dad that you defooed 12 years ago. And they've never lost sight of you. You've never left their thoughts. They've never stopped worrying and wondering about you. You got in an accident. The police called them. The only people that the police could call, because you don't have any other relationships. So the police called your parents, and there they are, beside your bed when you wake up in the hospital. When you think about the relationship that you have with your spouse, here's a good way to think about it, to find out if your spouse feels a storgic love for you. Put yourself in the position of the disgraced TV evangelist, or the disgraced politician, or whatever, that it is suddenly exposed that you are the supreme hypocrite of the universe, and that your whole world is built on sand, and you were arrested, perp walked, thrown into a purple jumpsuit, and jailed. And now you know who your friends are. For the first time in your life, you know who your friends are. And so my question for you is, where is your spouse? Where is your spouse? Is she there with you at the jail? Is she sitting across from you so that you can talk to her through the plexiglass over your little telephones? Or has she left you? Has she renounced you? Has she defooed you? The people who matter to you in your life are not the ones who agree with you on every little particular. That's not necessary, and it's not possible. There is no one who agrees with you on every little particular. If people disagree with you in such a way that they actually present a peril to your life, physical peril, sexual abuse, ongoing verbal abuse, that you can only survive by escaping it, you have to get away. If they're that toxic, then you have to break the relationship. But if they're not, you don't need that kind of perfectly correspondent agreement. What you need is someone who's going to stand by you when everyone else has turned on you. The family that matters to you is not some family of your choosing. The family that matters to you is the people who would never defeat you, the people who would never betray you, the people who would never cut you up. And to squander those relationships is unbelievably foolish. Just foolish. It's futile. It almost certainly will not work. It's obviously viciously anagogic. It is disproportionate to the conflict that you may have with these people. It is hugely disproportionate, and therefore it is irrational. But simply as a matter of practical ontology, carrying the proposition back to the argument, it won't work. It will not work. You will not be able to sustain it without continuous, ongoing, arduous effort, which you will not undertake. You won't do it. Ultimately, as an argument for libertarianism or for anarcho-capitalism or whatever it is that Molyneux says he stands for, it's foolish that way too, because the family is the building block of the civilization. That to the extent that Molyneux is anti-family, Molyneux is anti-liberty. And when somebody makes a truly basic error like that, I wonder why. I wonder what it is that led to such an amazingly stupid error. Because, again, carry it back to the object. We only find liberty where we find fatherhood, where we find serious, dedicated, systematic, philosophical fatherhood, where we find fathers who are absolutely certain of what it is that their job is, and they are doing it 100%. And anything that disrupts that destroys the prospect, not just for human liberty, but for civil society as such. That a world without families is a world without values, a world without thriving, without flourishing, ultimately without anything. That to be anti-family is to be nihilistic in the most fundamental way. No family is perfect, and that it's understood that every fishbowl is different, none of them are wrong, and practically speaking, none of them are perfectly right. But almost all of them are perfectly adequate. And to imply in any way at all that there's something defective about something that works, the only thing that works for providing for human thriving, that's certainly the thing that works best for providing human thriving, to insist that there's some defect in that requires its wholesale destruction is not just anti-egoistic, not just anti-libertarian, it's ultimately anti-human. And this really is my rejection of Stefan Molyneux to the extent that he wants to destroy families, he wants to destroy human lives, and I guess that makes him my enemy. I think it means he wants to kill me. I better just fill him right away. In reality, if I thought I wanted to kill him, this is one of his idiot arguments, is that your parents and other people that you know, because they're muddle-headed about statism, taxation, regulation, etc., because they're muddle-headed, they want to kill you, and therefore you should sever your relationships with them immediately because they want to kill you. But this is retarded. If they actually want to kill you, you should kill them immediately. Kill you before you kill me. I would argue that Stefan Molyneux's philosophy, if consistently applied, follow that vector as long as necessary, we arrive at a point where Stefan Molyneux and I are in a state of civil war. He wants to kill me, and in self-defense, I'm going to find it necessary to kill him. That is not the circumstance now. Not even close to it. And therefore, to draw any sort of conclusion or to take any sort of an action on the basis of Stefan Molyneux's anti-egoic, anti-libertarian, anti-humanism to set about to assassinate Stefan Molyneux before he assassinates me is disproportionate. It is irrational. I don't intend to spend any time investigating the other irrationalities that I might find in Molyneux's philosophy, but it is plausible to argue that that kind of disproportion is going to show up everywhere. It's certainly the case that rationalism, the belief in the prescriptive power of deductive reasoning, that a faultless chain of deductive propositions is dispositive in reality, that the map creates the territory, all of that is hugely erroneous and ultimately not worth bothering with either. But the thing that makes it worthwhile to me to even consider the existence of Stefan Molyneux is this argument that there is some value or benefit in destroying long-term storgic relationships. There is not. Except where the relationship is truly toxic. To destroy a relationship on a whim is hugely self-destructive. One relationship, and to destroy all of your relationships on a whim is massively self-destructive. It will be hugely painful to you and to all the people that you've cut off, and there is no benefit whatever to doing this. There is no gain whatever to be realized from doing this. To the contrary, it's nothing but a loss. But everything we know of love, we learn by being loved. And everything about us that makes us lovable was cultivated and nurtured in us by our parents, by their love. Whatever mistakes they might have made, they did the job. And you can tell because you're here talking to me about it now. They love you more than anyone in the world, perhaps excepting your spouse and your children. And they deserve better than they've gotten from you.